was hoping it wasn't the villain arc. I was hoping it wasn't the villain arc. Now we gotta watch, y'all, Fantano.
Anthony Slam Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd. I hope you're doing well. Now look, if you're a regular viewer of this channel, you know that I am no stranger to criticizing Spotify and the music streaming model at large, especially when it comes to ripping off artists. Could not possibly encompass all the ways that Spotify continues to be garbage. Spotify made a $150,000 donation to Trump's inauguration ceremony. Now, Spotify, from what I understand, defended this whole thing, talking about it being kind of like business as usual, and they often will host political things, and this is not particularly new or anything, given that Spotify has...
Wait a second. So here's the thing, right? The first thing that popped in my head after he said that was they also host... Aren't they the host of dang on Joe Rogan podcast? Aren't they the ones that gave him like the biggest podcasting deal ever? It's like, if you are, platforming him to the level of like hundreds of millions of dollars to him, yeah, they're gonna be absolutely cool with this guy.
Spotify has actually spent quite a bit of money lobbying the U.S. government over the years.
Yeah,
I guess we shouldn't be surprised to
try to stay in the good graces, because we are constantly, like I said before, I've worked with the Recording Academy to place laws against like Spotify and all of these streaming services to make sure that we are being taken care of as artists. And so he's over there like, well, I got a lot of money, and we know y'all like that money. So maybe if I get in good with the president, he can like do some executive orders for Spotify.
You find out that they are continuing under the Trump administration, but it's kind of funny to see this action coming from a company that supposedly cares about its user base of listeners and artists that are essentially its lifeblood, especially given just how many queer fans and singers and rappers, artists, and producers,
musicians
helped contribute to some of the biggest and most hit records of last year that Spotify probably made millions and millions and millions of dollars off of.
Yeah.
Again, you would think a company that actually cares about these people or has some kind of conscience might actually sort of second guess themselves, when truly and honestly they should. But again, you can't be too...
And what I will say also is a big problem with also capitalism in another way is that as much of a vehicle as it is for prosperity and to get people into a very quickly into another level of their ability to give back and to do for other people, it's wonderful in that way. But the other issue is when it comes to business, and you have people at the very top who have to seem very just about that money. Like, money as the only thing that matters, and they can't think about, oh, well, what are the optics of us doing a really important deal? How would that feel to the people who are supplying their art, when you have so many people who feel like art doesn't matter and the creative is not important enough, where it's the money that's important and the technology and the business, but it's always the art that makes a business be able to take off like that. If Spotify was itself without the art, Spotify wouldn't exist in the way that it does. And it's them not having a fullness of a full view of what it is, who they serve, who enables them to make the billions that they make, and making sure that this is something that would look good to them too. And they might also feel like, where else are they gonna go? Like, a lot of these indie artists will have a harder time getting onto every platform, even though I was also working on that, by the way. So I was helping, indie and DIY artists to make sure they can get on all the platforms. But that's also what I was saying, I just really hope Warner keeps investing into those platforms that we were building and maintaining and all of the things. And so, it's when you get to a certain place of money, you're expected to not care, and you're expected to just do the most, monetarily astute thing that you can. And if you're woke, which it would have come off as woke, especially in this day and time when the richest guy on the planet is so anti anything that looks like you care about a human being, you end up with things like this. And that's why, we try to get out there that DEI and wokeness is actually good. Oh, what's her name? The politician in Texas, Jasmine Crockett. She said this like yesterday in an interview. They used to say if you go woke, you go broke. And after apparently Trump is a little bit of crashing out with Elon doing the most. And she said, now we see if you don't go woke, you will go broke. Actually. And that's what I have known for over a long time in my life before I age myself out here. Okay. I've known for over a decade. All right. That being conscious of people who you think are vulnerable or are marginalized is how you get extreme success. It's what Apple did. Apple cared about artists. It cared about like at least making us feel seen. And the way we became fanatical about Apple, and then we put it into our art. We made our art with it, and we made it into our ecosystem. And then other people started to see how fanatical we were about it, and then it blew up. But then you have people now who are going off of more of the business model of being the only or being the biggest, and then you can do whatever you want. And that's kind of like Apple tried to do that too now after Steve Jobs is no longer with us. They're doing stuff just because they can, when that was antithetical to what Steve Jobs was all about. So, okay. Tangented. Okay. Oh wait, humble brag. Wait, what did I say? Oh no.
Surprised when this is the same company that has passed tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars at this point to Joe Rogan, of all people, to continue exclusively hosting his podcast where he just basically spews the most uninformed garbage on the planet. I guess basically what I'm trying to get at with...
And real quick, it must mean if you're going to spend the most money you've ever spent to a person for their art to be on the platform, that does not happen without the top knowing about it, being okay with it, and wanting to promote it. It's like we should have, like you kind of know it, but you kind of don't want to believe it. You kind of want to think like, oh, maybe it's just like a business thing. But still it shouldn't just be a business thing when this guy is just a lot. Joe is a lot. But maybe he also was investing knowing one day the president was going to be on his podcast, and then now you're like a part of history. But still.
This particular section of the video is that we really need to wipe from our minds the thought and the false understanding that companies such as Spotify are like, independent rogue figures that help change the face of the music industry, and they're not big, well-connected, super influential, powerful corporations. That's in fact what they are.
That's what they are.
There are sides to this dichotomy.
That's what they
are.
are.
And they are on a particular one, and it's the side of the rich, of the powerful, and the well-connected. Case in point, CEO Daniel Ek has continued his stock cash-out grind. We have reported on this channel multiple times.
It's like maybe he's cashing out because he's about to build something else. That's a formula. That's the same thing that like K-pop and South Korea really tapped on to, was the fanaticism of music in America, and using especially the fanatic people, musicians, Black Americans, even for like Fox News, the head of that, what's his name? The rich guy, billionaire who started Fox News, can't think of his name either right now. But all of these guys, all three of them went into America. Rupert Murdoch. Thank you, Diogen. You know what? Our powers combined. Okay. Rupert Murdoch. I don't know if y'all know the story of him, which when I heard it, I said, makes perfect sense. This man came out and started his first business, or at least the first of the story that I read about, as giving entertainment to Black people. He was like a media person for one of these movie streaming sites. It may or may not still be on the air, probably is, but he made so much money off of the Black community and putting up movies and things that we really cared about and were really special to us. Streamed that, made that money, and then is using that money to actually harm us in some ways, you know, and harming other people. And so it's not that these people who are doing these light, fun, artistic things like movies and music, it's not like these are just good guys either. Especially the more money they get, the more likely they are around people who have a lot of money who may have gotten it in ill-gotten ways. Okay, so it's that. And he went on to make Fox News, which is like tearing the world apart right now, or it has been for decades. And then you have Spotify. I'm not saying we're about to, you know, see the villain emerge, but it's more of a thing of he's pulling his money out, and he's probably now about to do the thing that's extremely important to him, which likely wasn't music. Because like when I watched his movie, he was a tech guy, and he's probably thinking like, what can I make that's going to be popular where there's a space for it? But I don't think he was a musician himself, if I remember, at least from what the movie talked about. So I don't know if his passion is in art. Same with Rupert. I don't know if his passion was in, I mean, it is in media, but not in the type of media he started with. And then I'm not saying anything bad about South Korea, but I'm just saying it was also in the vein of making these conglomerates based on that excitement. And that's, you know, a thing about YouTube, by the way. It's in a different way, but YouTube is now really embracing reaction videos because they want a lot of content that has a lot of feeling behind it. And when you are reacting to something, you're giving literal emotion to a camera, and then they get to take that thing and make money off of it. Like it's like the bottling up of emotion in a, you know, in a consumer way. Like you're giving it to someone, but then there's ads on it that I'm not quite making any money from yet. If you have not subscribed, let's get me to 1,000 so I can also make money from those ads that y'all watch. yet Static. So yes, those pieces.
That Daniel has essentially enriched himself to the tune of millions and millions of millions of dollars by gradually cashing out his Spotify stock shares. Apparently he has pulled out $29 million more dollars. What is he going to do with that? Invest in more military tech? I don't know. He could buy another...
What? I was hoping it wasn't the villain arc. What?
More dollars. What is he gonna do?
Daniel Ek, defense tech, and why some artists have joined a call to boycott Spotify. Again? Ugh. Ek's investment in security startup Helsing, via his Prima Materia firm, adds to Spotify's history of irking artists on its platform.
Do with that? Invest in more military tech? I don't know. He could buy another massive piece of property.
Spotify's founder and CEO Daniel Ek has bought a peninsula with residential buildings in Djursholm, north of Stockholm in Sweden. That's the billionaire fantasy, is to make your own country. I mean, historically, right? So then they can have their own laws, their own rules, and live in the fiefdom of themselves. Sly, you said, not sure if you agree, but I think it's only natural for corporations to behave this way. The problem is artists are not fighting in the other direction. Exactly, Sly. Very good point, Sly. But a lot of times we don't know about it. There are a lot of artists who, to do their art, they separate from all of the chaos. I was kind of mentioning that in a reaction to a song earlier called Hell and Heaven by Kendrick. He mentions all of these things, and it's like, for an artist especially, if you are overwhelmed by the stuff that's happening, and if you take in all the stuff that he's doing and that Elon's doing and Trump is doing, it can kind of mess with your like ability to really express yourself, because sometimes people create art in their anger, but a lot of times instead it's created in a space of silence or in a space of not being bombarded by the other things happening. And I feel like they've made things so expensive to where it's harder to be an artist. So there's a lot of people preoccupied with working more than they used to have to work to do their art. And it's hard to then, as artists used to be a lot of activists. And then they taught us that if we rage against the machine, they will sometimes harm us. Like a lady from my home state, Nina Simone, she was one of the biggest activist artists, and then they literally blackballed her from radio. Now you can't really do that anymore because they would just have to like ban you from streaming services, but we have the internet now, so you can still share all of her music, or share an artist's music who decides to do so, and speak up. But we just need more ways to organize artists to be able to have a collective voice, to then also not feel like they'll be harmed in their way of life taken from them in some ways. And so it's like, I think some people are fighting back in their music. That's who we're listening to today, Kendrick Lamar. He was fighting back in the last song we listened to of his, which was Savior. He, very briefly, and you can hear it in some of his other work, but he talks about just making sure that we are hopefully a little more awake and woke to what the corporations are doing, and that they're not always or usually thinking about our just well-being as a society, and you'll have people like the billionaires who are making these islands, and then he might want to invest in defense because he might want to be able to defend his island too, and not have to worry about calling in someone else's army, or maybe trying to make it so bunkered down that he can do whatever he wants in this place and no one can do anything about it. But is that for the betterment of society, or is that just for his own comfort and enjoyment? He says some of the most beautiful music, books, and other forms of art have been created by poor artists. Mozart used to get school teacher pay. Many bluesmen were barely doing any or getting any money, so many book writers. Sly, and that's what I'm also saying is that was a different era where you didn't need to make much. You could still be poor and a starving artist, but then still survive. Like now it's at a place where if you're poor, you may very well not have a home. And to not have a home at all, as I also am a like activist for homelessness, and I've learned so much about it, and I've tried to do some things about that, know that a person that doesn't have a home at all has very little likely of an ability to do much for themselves in the way of creating art, because you need some sort of stability to be able to know where you're going to eat next, what you're going to sleep next. When we used to take care of people who were down on their luck. And so it's like in Los Angeles, every night about 60,000 people were homeless, and only about 20,000 of them could find a bed each night. So it's beyond where it used to be, where that was not ever the case. We've never had it like that. We have more empty homes in America than we have homeless people. So it's all messed up. People are like, no, I only want rent for this place. I'll let them be homeless. But then we're paying more in taxes because people are homeless than we would if they weren't homeless. People don't see the full picture. Sometimes they don't want to see it. So for sure you agree, but you think it's obvious this is not to blame on music industry. This is society as a whole. Wait, no, that is a part of it, is what I'm saying. I don't know if you were here for the conversation earlier where I was mentioning how small music venues have been shuttered. We, including myself, have helped pass laws to make sure that people are getting paid, but at the same time, it shutters some music venues that would be paying these artists who would be able to make a living wage to then be able to not be homeless. There's a really big writer in the music industry that said to me one time that he feels that the literal homeless population in Los Angeles is because of the entertainment industries and people getting really, really close to being maybe famous. Like, I don't know how I agree with this, but he's well respected by a lot of people, but he felt like people got so close to almost getting to realize their dreams, and then it's been taken away from them. The avenues don't exist as much anymore. Like, there was one last jazz club in Los Angeles, and then they tore it down to put a hotel on top of it, you know? And I also agree, Sly. I don't believe anyone should be homeless. Like they say, some people. Oh,
Drewski Drew has gifted 1 sub to viewers.
Oh, Drew. You know, we'll get into more of those stories, and about my time in LA with that. Oh, and real quick, what I will say is LA actually is trying to make sure that the artist population doesn't all fall into the inability to live in the city. Daniel X. Neko body scan, the Spotify of healthcare. Here's everything you need to know. Spotify founder helped develop an AI-powered body health scanner. He sounds like he's just doing the same blueprint as, what's his name? As Amazon and Elon. Like, if you get to a certain amount of money, you can invest in stuff that's dealing with healthcare, with defense, and you know, you start with some art, like what Bezos started with, books and writers, and then you get into something that you try to make it so people can't live without. Bezos then got into healthcare. I'm sure Elon Musk would probably get into healthcare if he could, you know. Oh wait, after upending the music industry, now Daniel X looking to make waves in healthcare technology.
Only tell. Lord knows one thing he's not going to be doing with that money is giving it to musicians. That cash is much more likely to end up in the pocket of a military contractor or a far-right politician. And shout out to the needle drop.
Let's see, Spotify and UMG enter multi-year partnership to restructure monetization and subscription services. If Universal Music sells its Spotify stock right now, artists get $500 million. Universal is sitting on billions of dollars in Spotify stock. What? If it sells its stake today, it will trigger a massive payout for artists. But that's not the only reason it should cash out.
The major labels currently still own a financial stake in Spotify.
What?
And for years now, the exclusive deals that Spotify has inked with the majors and what that means for the artists that they...
So, and the reason that's weird to me, because it's like, they should have had better deals for their artists before now. If they have billions of dollars in stock, like, you get some say over the company. So I'm wondering why they haven't pushed a little bit more for their artists to get more. And I wonder if it's that Universal knows they're making the most from each of those transactions, and so they haven't really pushed so hard because they want Spotify to really get its footing. I think I also read earlier today that Spotify just posted its first profitable year ever. So it's like maybe they were giving them a little bit of like a grace period of several years to get to a place, and now they're gonna like expect them to give more money. Maybe.
They have signed to their label and how money and payments are structured. The wheelings and dealings and details of these agreements are not fully transparent, but you know that the majors have made sure that their I's are dotted and their T's are crossed, and they're fully aware of how all of it works, making them fully complicit of Spotify's mass robbery of artists across the board. And apparently this agreement is going to be ushering in something very ominous that is being dubbed Streaming 2.0.
So what that sounds like, first listen, instead of prioritizing consumer growth is like a euphemism for spending a lot of money to acquire customers. So that's going to be like a higher customer acquisition cost. And they're switching to prioritizing consumer value, which I think that means restructuring their offering so that the consumer, now that they have, pays more, so then they can make more and then give more, is what that sounds like.
UMG proposed a subscription tier model that adjusts to the user's listening habits, more partnerships with merchandising companies, and adapting monetization rates for artists depending on their popularity.
I have an idea of how this should go, but maybe I should build it. And that's why it's like, being in the industry for so long and then seeing how they currently do things, everything is always in the favor of the corporate, but there is a way that they could restructure this so that it is a lot more fair. And we're in capitalism, so I can't tell you what it is because I need to make the app and then make money from it. We'll see. But it's something I have been thinking about and could build.
So again, more plans to screw and essentially push out smaller artists who aren't doing quite the numbers and the scale that the majors and the bigger dogs on the platform are doing.
And that's another thing that happens is a lot of times payment systems for these artists, they end up taking bits and bits and bits, like let's say pennies from the smaller artists, to then give nickels to the medium artists, to give quarters to the ones above that, so that they can give these bigger deals. Like that's how they're gonna give a multi-hundred million dollar deal to Joe Rogan, because they're taking a little bit from all of the people to give to the superstars, who are also the ones that are usually making the most money anyway. So
in terms of views and streams and engagement, which is like pretty much the freaking opposite of what this whole system was created to change in the first place. This idea that like only a certain set of industry connected musicians like had access to
making money,
the abilities to share their music with the world, and get it out there for everyone to hear. Spotify is essentially going to be creating with the majors hand in hand a hierarchy that pretty much says to any small artist that isn't coming in with a lot of big buzz or a lot of music industry endorsements, hey, fuck you. If we even allow you to upload your shit onto our platform, you can pretty much expect it to end up in a dead zone where, due to your lack of popularity, you're either going to see a lack of exposure
or money,
really a total and utter lack of money, even if you do get some streams or some engagement. I mean, the whole intention behind this is made even clearer by this Daniel Ek quote in the article, where he essentially promises growth for the music industry.
The language is so coded, because like the benefit of artists and songwriters could mean you're giving, just kind of like he said, you're giving money to the labels, who then can have more services and more people to hire to then put the artists in more places and to get them, those types of things, instead of paying the artists and songwriters. Like you can say directly record payouts directly to artists and songwriters instead of to the benefit. That's what it gives it, this other layer of like, oh, you're not just gonna do record payouts to the artists and songwriters. You know what I'm saying? This partnership ensures we can continue to deliver on this promise by embracing the certainty that constant innovation is key to making paid music subscriptions even more attractive to a broader audience of fans around the world. That feels like they're going to make lower price tiers too. because the attractiveness of music, it should be the music. But if you are in the business of making the subscriptions attractive because you want them in your ecosystem, that's a different thing. That's a
Not musicians, not music, but the industry around it. There's
That
more
part.
to this piece on the
Exactly
Needle Drop
that.
Doc. Anthony Fantano, Spotify, trash
Ooh.
forever.
Ooh.
Hi everyone,
Ooh.
Hampton Slam.
Ooh. Ooh. He's mad. He's upset at these guys. He is upset. Oh my goodness. Bandana Bishop, you always give me such thoughtful things to consider. And I'm so glad that we ended up in this space because I wanted to watch this video and you gave me like this segue to even get into that. So thank you so much, Bandana Bishop. Kwani, thank you so much, Kwani. My goodness. Let me see. Drusk, thank you as well for sending me the Savior songs to review. My goodness, Kwani sent so many links. Thank you so much. I'm like trying to remember all the people who sent all the pieces. T, I think the first part of your name is T over on YouTube. You also sent some songs. Or you also requested that I do the full Mr. Morale, which hopefully we're going to do on Tuesday, is what I'm hoping for. I'm like, what else? Static. All my moderators, Zadie, went to go get cookies. I hope she made it okay on those cookies. Arian, oh my goodness, thank you so much as well. Y'all, I appreciate y'all. I'm going to have to chop all this stuff up and put a whole bunch of this on YouTube for forever, right?